Why or how did I end up in the Army National Guard? Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Team SWARTZ, and if this is your first time here, I love to post videos to help soldiers prepare themselves both mentally and physically for Army basic training, recruiting, and other Army-related videos. So if that's what you're here for, consider subscribing to this channel, but more importantly, do me a favor. If you find this video helpful or insightful or at least entertaining, share this video with somebody. I would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, hi, I'm Sergeant First Class SWARTZ, your local New York Army National Guard recruiter, conveniently located in Midtown Manhattan, and I am never too busy to transition you from a civilian into a soldier. That being said, why did I join the Army National Guard? I'm gonna be quite honest with you. My grandparents were in the Marine Corps. I aspired to be a Marine. I really wanted to earn that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor because let's be real. Their marketing campaign is phenomenal. I love their marketing campaign and they really instill God, honor, and country. And I just love everything about what the Marines portray themselves. And let's be real. They have the sexiest dress uniform in the military. I really wanted to be a Marine. I researched the hell out of the Marines. I really wanted to be a Marine. And I enlisted in 2001. I started researching in 2000 as a senior in high school. I actually sat down with active duty Marine recruiters, Army recruiters, and back then, recruiters, this is what gave recruiters a bad name. This was prior to 9/11, and recruiting was very toxic back then. The recruiters had very, horrible, toxic used car salesman techniques. They were lying to applicants, telling them, hey, when you join, you're going to get a house, you're going to get a car. If you were from upstate New York, where I was from, they're like, we can get you a dirt bike, a four-wheeler, some crazy nonsense. And they were very high-pressure salesmen. And I remember when I went to the recruiting office, the Marines and the active Army office that I was dealing with, they how do I explain it? They made me feel like I was a number for the month. They didn't really feel like taking the time to explain themselves. Like, I had questions like, what do you guys do? What is it like? You know, they just wanted me to sign. And they gave me the 680, which now I know is called the 680. It's a request for examination form. And, you know, they just pushed that in front of me. Hey, just do me a favor, sign right here. You know, it just turned me off because they didn't want to answer my questions. They were more concerned about signing me up as soon as possible. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing tomorrow? And they weren't trying to take care of me. It turned me off so much that I left that office and I went to another recruiting station. It was a recruiting center of all the branches of services except for the Army National Guard. And up until this point, I still did not know that the Army National Guard existed. I went past the Air Force, I went past the Navy. I mean, they tried pulling me into the office, but let's be real. I didn't want to wear their dress uniform. It looked hideous. I knew that I wanted to be a badass Rambo wannabe, so it was either Army or the Marines, with Marines being my top choice, and I wanted to see which one was best for me, for my reasons, providing that they could share me the information that I'm requesting. So I eventually make it to the Army and the Marine Corps. I sit down with them, and they too treated me like a number, not like an individual, a human being that they're trying to help out. And that was a huge turnoff for me. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I'll let you know when I'm ready. But they had my information, and they called my home, they called my school, they called my job. They harassed me trying to get me to join because, let's say, when you're in sales, you got to be on top of everything. So they do a really good job with follow-up. I'm not gonna lie, they're really good at follow-up. However, at some point in my senior year in January, I decided, you know what? I need to start looking into really making this happen. I'm about to graduate in a few months. Let's make it happen. So I called in the Marines and I called in the Army recruiters, and they came to my school. They called me out of band class. Yes, I was a band member, but I wasn't special. I was into percussion, playing the drums. So anyway, long story short, I walk into the guidance counselor's office. Now I had scheduled them 30 minutes apart because I wanted to talk to them individually, and I didn't want them to know that I was comparing them to another branch of service, but they happened to show up at the same time. With the Marine being a Marine, being egotistical and stuff, he immediately stands up and says, yo man, I thought you want to be a Marine. I'm like, oh, just, you're embarrassing me. Go into the room. So we go into the room, we sit down at the conference table, and he slides me over a 680. He's like, just sign right here. I know you want to be a Marine. You want to earn that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, right? I'm like, yeah, but I still want to know what job skills do you think that I could do? Now, up until this point, I haven't taken the ASVAB test yet. I was still just researching and trying to get my questions answered, which I still wasn't getting my questions answered, but they were still pressuring me into signing something, even though it's not a contract. I didn't know at that time, but it's not a contract. It's just to own my information, basically, so that another branch of service couldn't to steal me as their applicant, which I now know as a recruiter. However, he turned me off again because he didn't want to share with me the information or make me feel like he was trying to help me out or be honest with me and forthright and to basically help me answer my question. So I asked him to leave, and I said I'm no longer interested in joining the Marines. So he left, pissed off. And then the Army active duty recruiter comes in. I knew you wanted to be Army. Yeah. So what's up? You want to sign up? I'm like, well, yeah, I have some questions for you. I want to know what kind of job skills I want because I want to be a firefighter, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, oh, yeah, we'll give you whatever you want. Just sign right here. Again, pushing that request for examination form, which will give him ownership over my information. And I'm like, all right, but I have some more questions for you. And again, he deviated from answering my questions because he was more concerned with signing me up on the spot. And I was like, all right, you know what? You're turning me off again, just like the other recruiting station. I'm no longer interested in joining the active Army. So he left. About a month later in February, and it was a Monday, and I was in school, and there was a table display for the National Guard, and he happened to be wearing, not this uniform, but actually looked like this. It was the old BDUs before the digital ACU garbage-looking uniform. Anyway, so I saw the National Guard recruiter there. He was just like not harassing anybody. He was just answering questions if anyone came up, just giving people greetings of the day and stuff. It was pretty cool, but me already dealing with 2 different recruiting stations with 2 different branches, I was like, there ain't no way I'm going to give him my name and number. So I walked over, kept my head down, I grabbed some brochures, I grabbed the no, I didn't actually grab his business card. He offered me his business card, and he said, give me a call if you have any questions. I said, yeah, okay, cool. And I walked away. Now that night, it was on a Monday night. Now that night, I was on the internet. It was called dial-up. You don't know anything about dial-up. Crazy stuff. Anyway, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was on the website for the National Guard. I was like, you know what? This looks like something I could definitely do because I'm a volunteer fireman for my local town. So I was already doing stuff for my local community, and that was what I was passionate about. And I was kind of hesitant to go active duty because that's a huge commitment to go away for 3 years and not have a control of where your duty station is going to be. So that kind of deterred me a little bit to go in active duty. So once I found out the Army National Guard was part-time and I could serve locally, that met my comfort zone of me getting my feet wet, getting the same exact training as the Army Reserve and active Army. Everything else is the same. That's what I decided to do. And I don't know why he answered his phone, but it was like 11 o'clock at night. Answered his cell phone. He's like, yo, man, because I was asking about like what jobs I could get. And he's like, yo, I can't tell you what jobs you can get until you take the ASVAB test, but I'll tell you what, why don't you swing on by my office after school tomorrow? I'll answer all your questions and we'll take it from there. So I was like, yeah, cool. No problem. No pressure, too. Like, he was calm and cool and collect. It was awesome. I loved it. So after school on Tuesday, I went to his office. He answered every single question to my satisfaction. Didn't make me feel like I had to sign up right then and there. He didn't make me, he didn't like make me sign anything, this, that, whatever. He really took his time to explain everything. I mean, like, he told me about the next step, but he wasn't trying to force a piece of paper in front of me, like, sign here, sign here. He didn't promise anything that he couldn't deliver. So he was like basically saying, you have to take the test first. That'll tell me what job skills I can offer you, and depending on those different job skills will dictate what other incentives and things that like that and things of that nature that you would get. So I was like, all right, cool. So what's the next step? So he's like, well, you gotta take the ASVAB test, like I just told you. I said, great. When can I take it? He goes, well, we're doing a test here in the Armory in a half hour. You want to take it then? Because that's considered a MET site, like an alternate test site. You don't have to go to MET to take the ASVAB test at that time. So I ended up taking the paper version test at this MET site in the Armory, and I ended up passing. And they gave me some raw scores, and he said, these are the MOS that you could choose. I wanted to be a badass Rambo, right? So I decided that I was going to pursue the MOS of 13 Foxtrot, 13F, which is essentially a forward observer or a fister. Basically, I go behind enemy lines with binoculars. I locate them on the map, shoot a round down range from field artillery. Depending on where it lands, I adjust fire. And once I hit the target, then I would call for fire for effect and annihilate the enemy. That's what I wanted to be, because in my area, all we had was a field artillery company. So that was pretty cool. It met my needs and desires at that time. Then I went for medical. So that was on a Tuesday night, right? When I took the test, I met my National Guard recruiter for the very first time. That Friday, I did medical, and then I signed my contract. Now, I almost walked off the medical floor and did not sign my contract, because that is when I found out that I failed the medical exam and that I found out that I was red-green colorblind. I found out I could not be a badass, I could not be a Rambo, and I had 3 choices, and they were all pretty much in the human resources realm. So I ended up joining, back then it was called a 71 Lima, 71L, and now it's called 42A or 42 Alpha Human Resources Specialist in a field artillery company. So I wasn't too excited about it. I was kind of bummed out. I know I would have signed up because it was in my DNA. It was in my blood ever since I was a little boy. I knew I wanted to be in the military. And again, like I said, I originally wanted to be in the Marine Corps, but they didn't treat me well. Neither did the active Army recruiter. And I'm not saying that they all act like that now or whatever. I mean, there's good recruiters and bad recruiters in every branch of service. But my recruiter was honest and forthright with me the entire time. He made me feel like a human being. He made me feel like he had my best interest at heart, and that's what I admired about him. And he did not allow me to leave that day. Now, at first, I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to take me home? I mean, I'll come back later. He goes, why delay the inevitable? I know you want to join. Let's do it now. And I ended up signing my contract. And, you know, I've been in the Guard ever since. I was part-time the first year and a half. About a year and a half in, I decided to come down here to New York City, do the Homeland Security mission. The soldiers that you see standing guard, acting as a visual deterrent to deter terrorists from planning or executing an attack in New York City, and to work with the various law enforcement agencies throughout those locations. And that's considered Empire Shield. And I did that for 2.5 years before I volunteered to become a recruiter. So when I went to leadership school, I went to, back then it was called PLDC, now it's called BLC, which is Basic Leadership Course, to become a leader, to become a sergeant. And when we had a guest speaker, he said he had 24 or 28 years of service at that time. 9 of those years he spent in recruiting. So he said, those of you that are in the Army Reserve and the Army National Guard, and you want to help serve soldiers on a full-time basis, we all know how recruiters can be. So you could serve as a recruiter in your branch and give them a good, positive experience joining the service. Now, I knew how my experience was dealing with the recruiters that I dealt with at that time, and I wanted to be that difference, to be that change. And I genuinely care for my soldiers, and I want to do right by them. So I was motivated to take care of soldiers and to lead them on a full-time basis. And I didn't necessarily want to go full-time active duty in the big Army. I wanted to be active duty within my Guard branch because I enjoyed at the time what I was doing as a civilian and being a local fireman for my local town. So that's what I wanted at that time. So I went up to the Lieutenant Colonel. His name was Lieutenant Colonel DeSimone at the time, who was the task force commander at the time. And I was like, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a second? He's like, sure. He goes, you want me to close the door? I was like, nah, that's all right. So I sat down next to him and I was like, you know, I've been on here for 2.5 years. I love what I do here on Homeland Security. I love wearing this uniform every day. As you know, sir, I came back from BLC, or back then it was PLDC. And I was like, you know, I really want to take care of soldiers on a full-time basis. And, you know, we had this guest speaker, yada, yada, yada. And that's what I want to be. I'm aspiring to become a recruiter for the New York Army National Guard. What do you think, sir? What do you suggest? And he figured out, you know, he asked me some other questions to understand thoroughly of why I wanted to be a recruiter and this, that, whatever. And he goes, I support you 100%. And, you know, sometimes in the military, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And somebody owed him a favor, so he got me an interview. So basically all these like lieutenant colonels and majors and first sergeants all came down to New York City where my task force headquarters was, and Colonel DeSimone asked me to come out because we were having a barbecue that day, and he sat me down with all these high-ranking individuals, not knowing that they were in the recruiting and retention command, and he was like, Special SWARTZ, why don't you tell me why you want to become a recruiter? And I'm looking at him funny like, sir, we already had this conversation, you know. He's like, just, you know, entertain me. So I told him, I repeated everything I said to him, and he goes, all right, good enough. You're good to go. You can go back to your arms room. I said, all right, sir, thank you very much. And I went back to the arms room where I was working in that position at the time. So next thing you know, I get a phone call from Colonel DeSimone a couple days later telling me that I am no longer going to be working at SAD. Starting on Monday, I'm going to report to Master Sergeant Sanchez, which is my new NCOIC, as a recruiter. And I was like, get out, sir. And he's like, yep, you got it. Congratulations, Special SWARTZ. You're going to become a recruiter. I said, woohoo, yes. And, you know, to meet the formalities, I did do my interview with Sergeant Major Terabessi at the time. And that was the end, man. 15 years later, here I am, a recruiter. And I love being a recruiter because I love helping soldiers. I positively impact people's lives. And I just love what I do as a recruiter, because you cannot be in recruiting this long if you don't enjoy what you're doing. Because recruiting is not easy. It's a high stressful environment. It's not like a deployment where you high five at the end, job well done, that's it, you can de-stress. But in the Army, as a recruiter, Ferris wheel, it just never ends, a vicious cycle. So that's how I ended up in the Army National Guard, how I ended up being a recruiter. And I'm about to go to the Drill Sergeant Academy in April, so that should be interesting and fun. I'm looking forward to that. It's something I've always wanted to do since I enlisted into the Army National Guard, and finally gonna make that dream come true. So root for me, pray for me. Hopefully I make it through the Drill Sergeant Academy, which I know I will. I have like 6 months to prepare for it, so there's zero excuses. I mean, the maximum effective range of an excuse is 0 meters. Yeah, I'm pumped up, I'm excited, and yeah, so thanks very much. If you have any questions about the Army National Guard, comment them below, and I'll see you next time. That's it, video's over. Sorry, but you can definitely watch more. You can check out this video here, or maybe you can check out this video here. But you know what, actually, this video is pretty good. You should definitely watch this one. But actually, this one seems pretty great.
you should definitely check out this video. But actually, why don't you watch them both? Try clicking them both